What's up, vapors? Thanks for checking out Spin Fuel's Daily Vape TV. My name is Nick, and today we're going to be taking a look at Clouds of Olympus. So before I get into this review, I do want to give a huge shout out to Ben and Channy over at Clouds of Olympus. They're the ones that gave me this juice for the purpose of this review, so I wanted to give them 2 big thumbs up, and thank you for being so gracious. So I have 8 flavors in total to try for you guys. I'm going to break this video up into 2 parts. So in part 1, I'm going to cover 4 flavors, and then in part 2, I'm going to cover 4 flavors. So to begin with, we have Hephaestus's Revenge. And the flavor description on this one reads, Hephaestus's Revenge is a fruity mixture of the sun's light, unicorn farts, and a touch of pomegranate. So that's kind of an interesting flavor description, if I do say so myself. So let's go ahead and have our first vape. So before I go any further, I do want to mention the fact that I am using a fresh coil in the Ego 1 and Subtank Nano combo, like I do for all my flavor reviews. And right off the bat, on the inhale, I get that really heavy hit of pomegranate, and I get somewhat of maybe a blueberry or something like that on the exhale. It's a really nice mixture, and with this stuff here, it's all max VG, so you get really good clouds out of it. So no complaint in the vapor production department. But overall, it's a nice, sweet, fruity flavor. Nothing too pungent. You know, it doesn't really, affect my taste buds in any way. I could really call this one an all-day vape personally. I really do recommend it as well. So let's have our second vape, and I'll get to my ratings. Alright, so for the flavor on this one, I'm actually going to give it a 4. It's a pretty decent flavor. That pomegranate really does stick out in my mind. I get that heavy pomegranate right on the inhale. It doesn't lack flavor whatsoever, even though it is max VG. And I think it could be an all-day vape for me. It's a pretty good one. For the vapor production, I'm going to give it a 5. And I'm going to guess right now that all these flavors are going to be 5s as far as the vapor production is concerned. You really can't go wrong with max VG, and even out of a device like this, you get really thick plumes of vapor. So, that being said, with the throat hit, I'm going to knock a point off and give it a 4. That blueberry pomegranate mixture always kind of gives me an extra kick in the back of my throat. So for this one, I'll knock a point off and say 4, but it's nothing too bad. I can definitely deal with it. So that does it for Hephaestus's Revenge. Let's move on to our next flavor. Alright guys, so we're ready to go for our next flavor, which is going to be Athena's Virtue. The flavor description on this one reads, Athena's Virtue will remind you of the pure joy your grandmother's fresh-baked apple pie used to bring you. So, it's an apple pie flavor. Let's go ahead and have our first vape here, and I'll let you know what I think. So the first thing I noticed on this one is the apple kind of seems to be lacking a little bit. I really wish I got more of that apple flavor in there. I get a lot of the pie crust kind of flavor to it, so it's more of a bakery flavor. And as you guys probably know, I'm not the biggest fan of bakery flavors, but overall, I think the combination would go really well if that apple was kicked up a notch. It's hard to determine really what kind of apple they were going for, which more like a green or a red or whatever. So it's a little bit, muddled in my opinion, but overall it makes for a pretty decent flavor. However, I don't think I could see myself vaping this one all day. Let's go ahead and have our next vape. Alright guys, so for my ratings on this one, for the flavor, I'm going to give it a 3. It's a pretty decent flavor all around, but overall I get more of the bakery flavor than I do the apple flavor. So I'm going to knock a couple points off for that, but if they kicked up that apple a little bit, I think this one would definitely score a lot higher in my book. For the vapor production, I'll give it a 5. Really no complaints in the vapor department there. And for the throat hit, I'm going to knock about a point off for the little extra cinnamon kick to the back of your throat. But overall, nothing I couldn't handle. Max VG usually leads for a nice smooth throat hit. So if anything, it's almost lacking in the actual nicotine throat hit department. It's the cinnamon that really gets to me. So 4 for an overall score for the throat hit. Alright, that does it for Athena's Virtue. Let's move on to our next one. Alright vapors, our next flavor on the list is going to be Aries Ridicule. The flavor description reads, Aries Ridicule will leave you trembling when you taste the perfectly mixed flavor of creamy pear, subtle and oh so worth the vape. So, as you probably know, pear is a very delicate flavor, so I don't know what to expect out of this one really. Never been a huge pear fan, but if you mix it right, I think it could be really good. So let's go ahead and have our first vape. So I gotta tell you, I had my doubts about this flavor, but just vaping it just now and priming the coil up, I really can taste the pear in it. So they did the pear a lot of justice, and the creamy notes on the aftertaste is really nice. It leaves a nice taste on your tongue, nice and sweet and light. It's not overbearing in any particular department, but I do get a little bit of the pear and a little bit of the creaminess to it. So overall, it's a really refreshing kind of flavor. Not sure if it's an all-day vape for me, but I did vape about 85 to 90% of the bottle before doing this review. So apparently I really like it on the dripper, and I do recommend trying this stuff out on a dripper if you have one, just because it is max VG, and I think it will work really well if you have one. So that being said, let's have our second vape and I'll get to my ratings. Alright guys, so for my ratings on this one, I'll give it a 4 for the flavor. Not an all-day vape per se, but it's definitely a good occasional vape. If you got a dripper, definitely recommend using it on there, and it leaves a nice taste on your tongue. That's what I really like about it. The pear is really bright and nice and fresh, and you can kind of taste that juicy pear, and the cream tones to it are nice and underlying, and they leave a really good flavor on the tip of your tongue. It's really good, so do recommend that if you like a pear vape. For the flavor, or for the vapor production, I'll give it a 5, and for the throat hit, I'll give it a 4.5. If anything, this one is a little bit light on the throat hit because it is nice and smooth all the way through the vape, and it is maybe because of the higher VG that it is a little bit lighter, but overall it's pretty satisfying. So that does it for Aries Ridicule. Let's move on to our next flavor. So our final flavor tonight is going to be Zeus's Infidelities. The flavor description on this one reads, "Are you going to enjoy a night out on the town with your friends? Bring your Zeus's Infidelities e-juice. This strong bourbon flavor has a hint of coconut that pairs perfectly with a night out." Well, unfortunately, I'm not going out after this, but I do enjoy a good coconut flavor, so let's give this one a shot. I'm honestly blown away by how good this flavor is. Now, normally I don't really go for the bourbon kind of vapes, but the coconut in this, you can taste it not only on the inhale, but on the exhale as well. Also on the inhale, you do get that nice bourbon flavor, and it is a more natural kind of tasting bourbon, like you're actually sitting there sipping a nice glass of bourbon. I normally don't go for flavors like that, but I think it's really the coconut that brings the whole thing all together with this one. Really do enjoy it, and if you like a good bourbon or a good coconut flavor, definitely recommend this one for you. Let's go ahead and have another vape here, and I'll get to my ratings. For the flavor on this one, I'm going to give it a 4. It's a nice smooth flavor overall with the coconut, and you get that initial bourbon bite right on the inhale. It's pretty nice. So I definitely recommend this one. Not an all-day vape, so to speak, but I do recommend this one, especially kind of an after-dinner, during dessert vape kind of thing. I think this would go nicely with that. For the vapor production, I'll give it a 5, and for the throat hit, I'm going to knock about a half a point off just for that little extra bourbon bite on the inhale. Nothing I can't handle, anything like that. Just, you know, not your normal typical 3 milligram throat hit. Just that little extra bourbon bite gets me a little bit. But other than that, I think that, you know, this flavor is great. So I definitely do recommend giving it a try. So that does it for part 1 of this video. Make sure you stay tuned for part 2. I'll have a link in the description if you want to purchase any of these liquids for yourself. So let me know what you think. Would you think you would enjoy these flavors? Have you tried them before? What do you think of Max VG e-liquid? Do you think it runs better in a tank or a dripper? So let me know in the comments box below, and make sure you like this video. All the support is greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you subscribe, and to see more of my videos, go to spinfuel.com. I have all my videos up there, as well as Smoke and Joy and Spinfuel official videos. And as always, vape on!